All right, and we're live. Welcome, everyone, to this 9X Live workshop on building a Make AI agent. So we're going to build a Make AI agent together. In terms of what we have in store, so for this 90-minute session, I'll start with a quick intro, and then we'll cover some few sort of let's say, theory concepts of when you should be thinking about using this new AI agent feature within Make. Maybe on that one, feel free to drop in the chat. Are you an existing Make user? Are you already a Make user, or are you new to Make and just interested to check out what this AI agent feature is all about? So definitely drop that in the chat so I get a bit of a feeling who's in the crowd. Afterwards, we'll cover some of the key components of AI agents and how these are sort of represented within the Make AI agents feature. Then, as we move towards the build, some best practices. And finally, we'll be building the agent together. Now, the agent that we'll be actually building, so we've done some previous 9X Live workshops where we've built specific agents, like building an inbox manager, building a meeting agent, building a lead research agent, so very use case specific agents. What I want to cover today is really more like the technical foundations. So it's going to be a simple Slack assistant agent. And really what I'm trying to do in this build is to give you all the technical knowledge that you need to be able to then apply any use case that you might have. So it's not so much like a meeting agent or an inbox manager or a lead researcher. It's more a generic Slack agent that then you'll be able to customize to pretty much any tool that you need. Let's take a look at what we want to do today. So in terms of the objectives, number one, I want to give you a clear guide of when to use Make AI agents and also maybe when not to. Explain the different components of Make AI agents, and then of course, have you build your first AI agent live. So on to part one, sorry, when to use an AI agent in Make. So the one question I guess a few of you are maybe asking, especially if you are existing Make users. So now that we have access to Make AI agents, we should use agents for everything, right? And obviously the answer here is no. I think there's a lot of hype around AI agents. They are super, super powerful, but they are not necessary or not the best, let's say, solution for every single use case. And to help you out with this, my colleague Alex, my co-founder Alex, created this. Maybe you've actually seen this cheat sheet. It sort of went viral on LinkedIn about an easy breakdown of where you can think about when to use automations and also understanding the difference between automations, AI workflows, which are basically just automations with at least one AI step in them, and then finally when you should be leveraging AI agents. I will be sharing these slides afterwards, so you'll have access to this full cheat sheet. Now, what I want to do is break this down with a simple example, and I think that's a good way to approach this difference between an automation, an AI workflow, and an AI agent. So if we take a look at an example of a new lead signing up to one of our webinars, and what should we use when we want to save the lead's information to our CRM? So in this case, we have a lead signing up to a webinar through a form, and we want to save that information to a CRM. Here, a simple automation is the way to go. And this is an example of you might have a tally form to capture those webinar signups, and then you want to basically save that information to HubSpot. This is a very deterministic workflow. This is not something that should ever involve an AI agent, because you want to make sure for every lead that fills that form out, that data is saved, and we don't want any room for hallucinations for the agent to get creative. It's a very simple task. It's very linear. It doesn't need any autonomy. So this is something that a simple automation should handle. Now, what if we actually want AI to classify whether that lead that signed up, whether they signed up with a business or private email? In this case, we could bring in an AI workflow where before we save the information to HubSpot, we could simply have an AI step, and this is using the Make AI tools, but this could be a ChatGPT step, this could be a Claude step, this could be a Gemini step. Basically, all it's doing is it's taking the email address of the person that signed up, categorizing it as business or private, and then we could save that to a custom field in HubSpot. This is an AI workflow. Now, finally, if after we save and classify the lead, we want to automate the initial lead research. So what I mean by the initial lead research is maybe for every lead that signs up, we have their name, we have their email address, and we have their company name. What we want to do is maybe go and find their LinkedIn profile, go and do some initial research about them, and maybe see, like, will they be a fit for whatever product we're trying to sell? And that is a perfect then example of an AI agent. So we can basically build onto that workflow. We have the leads sign up, but very importantly, before we give it to our AI agent, we are saving the information in our CRM in HubSpot. What we can then do is whatever contact ID HubSpot gives us, we could actually pass that to our agent. And one of the tools that our agent could have access to is updating the HubSpot record. But we wouldn't want to give it the responsibility of saving it in the first place. But what it could then go and do is go and do some research, maybe create a note, and then go and attach that note to the HubSpot contact. So are there any questions on that, that difference between when to use an automation, an AI workflow, or an AI agent, or is that pretty clear for everyone?
No questions in the chat.
All good? All right, perfect. And I saw a few thumbs up as well. Then just something to keep in mind as you go about building, because obviously it's exciting that we have this new technology, but it's not something we need to use all the time. All right, so now what are the components of an AI agent? And what I mean by this, the different components, these are some of the components that we've seen being basically leveraged in a lot of the no-code AI agent platforms. So we've been building a lot, and we've done some live workshops in the past with Lindy, with Relevance, and now obviously Make AI Agents feature. N8N is a very popular platform for agents as well. And there's sort of some core components that we've identified. And the 6 of these are instructions, abilities, tools, knowledge, memory, and cooperation. And I want to go into each of these in a little bit of detail. So first of all, when it comes to instructions, so instructions are the overarching guidelines, how the agent should behave. So instructions provide the broad operational framework for the agent. And within those instructions, you basically have focus directs the agent's attention to a specific task, while role play defines how the agent should interact or behave. And what we'll see is when we go and build our AI agent, these instructions are basically a big prompt that we give our agent. So some examples here, we could have an agent role play as a content writer, which can generate blogs, LinkedIn posts, and tweets. We could have an agent in the example that I showed before, role play as a lead researcher, where it goes and finds information about contacts and companies. Or we could have a data analyst agent that analyzes quantitative data sets and generates dashboard. So the instructions are going to basically set the focus and determine how your agent should behave. Next up, we have abilities, and these are built-in competencies to process information and interact and perform tasks. So some of the abilities we've seen in a lot of the AI agent building platforms, of course, the typical ones for large language models, generating text, translating text. Taking that a bit further, we've seen some built-in functionality about scraping web pages, extracting PDF data, then more typical LLM abilities of analyzing emotions and categorizing items. Next up, we have tools. So agents can use different tools, and tools are the integrations connecting agents to external services to accomplish tasks. This is obviously very, very important because a lot of people, we're seeing agents, a really good, let's say, definition of what an AI agent is, or how people are viewing them, are as digital employees. And of course, when a new employee joins your company, you need to be giving that employee access to the different tools that you use, access to your Google Suite, access to Google Docs, access to Slack. So tools are the different integrations. So for instance, our agent could search the web on Google, update CRM records on HubSpot, notify in Slack, send emails through Gmail, manage documents, and make API requests. And obviously Make have a massive advantage when it comes to tooling, since they have a lot of these integrations already. And if you're an existing Make user, you probably have a lot of these connections already set up. So tools are really the way that your agent can interact with the different tools that you're actually using for your work. Next up, we have memory. And memory is basically the context gathered from past instructions, decisions, and outcomes. And these can basically be split into 2 categories. So first of all, we have short-term memory. And this is information stored about the current session. And this is something that we'll be building, our agent will be able to do, is access this short-term memory. It basically allows the agent to focus on a specific task. Let's say you have an agent helping you with booking a holiday. When I'm talking to my agent, the agent probably asks me, where do you want to go? I want to go to Barcelona because I don't like having any electricity. I want to go in the summertime. And what I don't want is every time I'm having a conversation with this agent to repeat that I want to go to Barcelona on the 28th of April. I just want to say it once and that it remembers what I've said. On the flip side, when someone else is leveraging that agent and wants to go to Amsterdam, the agent shouldn't get confused about those two sessions. So that's where short-term memory comes in. And then we have long-term memory, which persists across multiple sessions, allowing the agent to store key pieces of information for future interactions. And this can really help with agent learning. So how the agent can actually improve on its performance over time. Then we have knowledge. So fifth component is knowledge, is predefined information the agent is built with or has been trained on. There are various knowledge sources that we could feed into our agent. For instance, your company website, your help center, your FAQs, your internal wiki, PDF files, CSV files, or even your company chat. And then finally, cooperation. So cooperation is the ability for our agents to not simply have one agent working by itself, but have the ability to combine agents together and have them work in parallel. So the ability for agents to interact with and delegate work to each other. So if we look at an example here, you could have a content creator who's responsible for generating marketing content. Once they've done that, they've created maybe LinkedIn posts or blog articles or emails, they could actually hand that off to a campaign manager agent, which is responsible for actually scheduling and running the marketing campaigns, maybe setting up the LinkedIn posts, setting up the Google Ads campaigns. And finally, you could have a data analyst agent that analyzes campaign performance and basically feeds back to the other two agents. So just on those 6 components, before I go into like how we see these in Make, are there any questions that came up in those?
Now we have 2 questions, one which is more tool related, and one about the security of data. And we have another question, which is why create multiple agents and not a single one with all these features?
Yes, so that's a very good point, and we come to it on a little bit later. I think it will become clearer as we build. It's just like how if you're actually a person working at a company, if you're one person trying to do everything, you're trying to do the marketing, you're trying to do the sales, you're trying to do the HR, it can be very hard of doing this like topic switching. And the same as like when you're actually hiring employees, you're hiring them for specific purposes so that you can, for instance, there's specialization that a marketing person is probably going to write better email copy than maybe a developer. Could not be. But also in terms of like if you think about onboarding that person, when you would onboard a marketing employee quite differently to when you would onboard an engineer or maybe someone in HR. And it's really about focus, because as you write out these instructions, you can see even with an agent having a specific focus, the instructions can get very, very long, and it's going to be far better. You'll get a lot better performance if the agent doesn't need to make so many different decisions. If for instance, the copywriting agent, the only instructions you need to give it is say, hey, you'll be provided with a brief of what content you need to create, and here's all your instructions about how you should go doing it. If that same agent now needs to have a whole bunch of instructions about how it should analyze job candidate interviews, it can really get confused. So it's probably a bit about comfort in the way we build to be able to compartmentalize these, and also in the way that the agent actually performs better. I just saw there was something in the chat about no audio, but I'm not sure. Maybe that's just you, Migali. I think if everyone else can hear me, just give me a thumbs up. Yeah, perfect. All right. So with these 6 components in mind, I just had a quick sort of like scorecard, very high level, about how these look like in Make. So what's very important to point out is Make AI Agents is a new feature. And the way I would look about it, if you're an existing Make user, what's amazing is you now have access to build agents. You have now agentic capabilities inside your Make workflows. So in terms of let's say this is the first version of the feature, and we actually are in touch with the product team at Make, giving them feedback on it, and they have a lot more planned. So I know as soon as the features get released, a lot of people like comparing this to how does it look in other tools. The way I would look about it is the very first features that they rolled out were basically the instructions. Obviously, it's needed to have agents. Also, the ability to call different tools, which in Make is the scenarios, and they have the ability to store short-term memory. Not yet any long-term memory, so that's why I've got basically this green and yellow. With Make specifically, the reason why I've said for abilities is not something that they're really, let's say, pursuing at the moment, is because all of those abilities, like I said, some agent platforms are going to give you the ability to scrape a website out of the box or read a PDF document. In Make, everything needs to be a tool. So you can have different tools that allow you to scrape websites. For instance, like Apify is a very popular one. So you will need to like connect to those different tools. There's not any, like, let's say, built-in abilities that can do that. When it comes to knowledge, this is a feature that just got released. I logged on to Make this morning and was surprised that now our agents have access to knowledge. So I've put this one as yellow as not green just because I haven't had a chance to test it yet. And when it comes to cooperation, so you can set up already in Make sub-agents. You could have an agent call another agent, but it basically does this through tooling. So there's no, let's say, specialized features around cooperation, but you'll see that a little bit later. So I just wanted to point out here is when we talk about these components of AI agents, some of them are already quite advanced in Make, and some of them will probably be coming soon. All right, now before we get into the build phase, just some quick best practices for implementing AI agents in Make. So first of all, we'll see this, but the AI agents that we build, they basically need to be set up on 3 different levels or 3 different areas. So first of all is the agent itself. Then what we need to do is create tools. Tools are the different scenarios that we actually create that we give our agent access to. So for people that are familiar with Make, you know that you can create scenarios, which are workflows. For instance, like whenever there's a new row in Google Sheets, I want to generate a blog post and send that via email for review. That is a typical automation that you can build in Make. And what you're giving the agent the ability to do is choose when it runs the different scenarios that it has access to. So that's how tools work. And then finally, what we need to create is a trigger scenario. So a base scenario in Make that will actually call the agent. So it can be a little bit confusing, but that's why I want to walk you all through this step by step. And then in terms of actually like planning out any agent, some best practices I want to share before we go into the build is, first of all, use AI as much as possible to help write the agent instructions. We'll see that these can be quite long. Next up, set a clear, narrow goal for your agent. That's sort of what we talked about creating these different agents that have a specific purpose. Then next up is provide just enough context. Because our agents are going to be these single purpose agents with a narrow goal, they don't need all the information about your company. They don't need all the information that your company has ever created or the history of all of your Slack messages, for instance. You just need to give them the exact context they need to, let's say, properly perform the task at hand. And finally, build a human in the loop for quality control. So I already saw a couple of like questions in the chat around like the security. I think human in the loop is a very important part. And what that basically means is when there are some mission critical things, or what we call like side effect tasks, and side effect tasks can either be like updating a system of record, or for instance, contacting a customer, sending an email. What we want to do where possible and where it makes sense is put a human in the loop. So you could have our agent come up with that first draft, and then we just make it super simple that in one click I can validate and say, yes, go and send that email, but we don't have our agent just emailing customers left, right, and center. All right, and if there's no questions, then let's get on to the build. So as I said, we're going to be building a Slack agent. So before I actually go and share these instructions with you, because I don't think we need them right now, what we need to do as a first step is head over to Slack. So for those who saw it, I did send an email around earlier. And let me see, Justine, just remember to keep an eye on the waiting room, because I see I'm just letting in some more people there. So I sent around a demo before about creating a Slack channel and connecting it with Make. So that's going to be very important. So make sure you have a Slack channel created. So just go ahead and create a channel. I would recommend just doing a public channel, just give it a name. And then this is going to be the channel that we're going to be using to interact with our agent. Because just like if you think about an agent being a digital employee, when you want them to go and perform a task, it's great to have an interface that we can chat with them. And Slack is obviously a very good one for this. So I'll give everyone just a minute to just go ahead and create their Slack account. And then either if you can give a thumbs up in the chat or use the Zoom reactions just to let me know when you're good to go and you've created your Slack channel, and we can move on. Awesome. Chris is all good. Yeah, nice. Awesome. A few more people. All right, so now that we have our Slack channel set up, we can head over to Make. And where we want to go, first of all, we're going to start by creating our AI agent. And hopefully, so if you have access to it, I understand not everyone has access to it yet. So if you don't, I guess this is more going to be a follow along that you'll know how to build it once you do get access to it. But this is something that is slowly rolling out. So here we have AI agents. And what I want to do is create an AI agent. And maybe on this one, just so I get an understanding as well for the crowd, could you let me know which AI model do you actually have access to in your Make account? Is it ChatGPT? Is it Claude? Is it Gemini? So just let me know, because then I'll try and pick whichever model is closest to most people. ChatGPT, Mistral, ChatGPT. Okay, that's what I thought. ChatGPT and Claude. Amazing. Some more ChatGPT. Okay, so I'm going to go with ChatGPT. Now, I've already got my connection set up. If you do not have a connection here already, but I guess if you're an existing Make user, what you'll need to do is just hit add. Then you can select whichever, let's say, AI provider you have access to. So in this case, it'd be OpenAI. And then what it's going to ask you is to paste your API key. So this is something you can find with in your ChatGPT paid account. You need a developer account, but there's basically some Make instructions here on how you can do that. But I'm just going to select OpenAI, and then I'm going to give my agent a name. And this is going to be Jan Demo Slack Assistant. And the model that I'm going to use, so for ChatGPT, I would recommend using 4o Mini because it is quite fast. What this agent does here is it basically, based on our system prompt, it will decide what action needs to be taken. And then for performance, and especially if we want like a Slack agent, it's best if it can make these decisions quite quickly. But the 4o Mini is still a very, very powerful model. Now what we need to give it is our system prompt. And with that, what I've provided, and I'll basically share this link now. Let me copy the link here that I can send on Zoom chat. Here we go. So this one is just a Notion that I've published that contains a few different prompts that we'll be using throughout the live build. So just make sure you open this one up. And while you're opening that one up, what I want to just do is quickly go through and talk a little bit about how I've set up this. This is the agent prompt, or the core instructions that we spoke about before. So what I might do is I might zoom in a little bit here. So what we're doing is a version 1 is we're simply going to create an agent that basically answers our questions. And it's pretty much going to be as if you have ChatGPT directly connected to you on Slack. So it's not going to have any more capabilities as if you're chatting with ChatGPT. The only benefit is that it can talk to us via Slack. And this, let's say, format of agent instructions or agent prompt is actually one developed or shared by Ben AI. So if you are interested in more complex agents, definitely check out Ben AI's channel. But I basically used ChatGPT to come up with this prompt, and I can even show you that one. So over in ChatGPT, I have a chat where simply I just gave it high level what type of agent I want to create. So here it says, can you please create a system prompt for an AI agent that is solely responsible for just answering my Slack message? To begin with, it won't have any tools. There's no strict tasks. I just want to perform, wanted to perform basically that it answers my questions. I actually sent this in a voice note, so it's not so well formatted. But here I'm using a, let's say, a project that has some best practices on generating these agent instructions. First, it gave it to me in written text, so I had to basically tell it, can you give me that in Markdown? And then this was what it came up with. So here is your knowledgeable, responsive AI assistant, and that is exactly what we have in that Notion document that you have access to. So going through is basically giving a role and persona, then talking about what's the objective or what's the task at hand, any context that it needs. And in this case, it doesn't need any extra context because it's just using what it already knows. And then these standing operating procedures. So this is like step by step how the agent should perform its tasks. So here it's just monitor Slack messages, basically pass the user's question or response, retrieve or compose the most accurate answer based on your knowledge. So it's not using any tools yet. And then format the reply using Slack Markdown. And here I've given it some instructions of how Slack messages can be formatted. And there's some additional instructions and rules. And then here you'll see tools and sub agents. At the moment, there's none. And then we have some examples. So this is already quite a good, let's say, base prompt. So that one I'm just going to take over and go to my agent that I have set up and just paste that one here in the system prompt and then hit save. Awesome. So I'll give everyone a couple of seconds just to get to that point. So have your system prompt pasted into your agent, and then we'll go and explain a couple of things here. Again, if you can give me a thumbs up when you're ready to move on. Once I see a couple of thumbs up, then I can move on to the next step. Awesome. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Klaus. All right. So here in the agent settings, we have a couple of options. So first of all, one thing that's a little bit hidden, which is sometimes useful, is looking into the agent settings here. And we have some settings around like output tokens, how many steps the agent could complete, and how many like number of runs. So this all looks a little bit technical. What I would say is don't worry about these until if you ever get into some issues with your agent timing out or saying there were too many tokens used, then maybe you need to come back into these settings and increase the number. But this is something that I wouldn't worry about for beginners. Now, this context option down here, this is something that new knowledge feature that they literally, I think, just released either yesterday or over the weekend. What this one is, if anyone's familiar with setting up custom GBTs where you can add knowledge, that is the same thing here. So I can actually upload files, text, CSV, JSON, PDF. It can basically, if you're uploading PDF, it's only at the moment analyzing the text within those PDFs. But this is great, for instance, like style guides, or if you have a long list of FAQ questions, you could basically add them here. And what the agent will do is if, for instance, a question that gets asked could be answered, the answer could be found in this knowledge base, in this context. This is basically what's known as vectorized. So the agent like remembers it in its core memory and can easily access it. So this is a great tool now that Make have given us access to, and then we'll have the system tools that we'll use in a second. But to begin with, all I want to do is just have those system prompt and hit save. And now what we need to do is we need to move on to actually building the make scenario that's going to call this agent. So I'm going to go over two scenarios and create a new scenario. And this is a quick refresher of the Loom that I sent earlier. But what I want to do is whenever I receive a message in this Slack channel, I want to basically pass that message to my agent, have the agent come up with a reply, and then basically send it back. So in here, I'm going to use the Slack as the trigger. And if you just search for events, there's basically this action, which is watch new events. And I'm going to select that one, watch new events. And this is the only instant trigger that Slack offer. And so that's a very good one to use, because in the others, you might need to like wait 15 minutes and then you get all of the last messages. Whereas this one, as soon as you send a message, this is going to instantly run this scenario. And you see that this has changed to like a little lightning bolt. And what we need to do is we need to set up a webhook here, and we can simply hit add. And then I'm going to give mine a name. So I'll call this one Yan Demo Slack agent. This is just so that you basically can keep track of these different webhooks that you're creating. And the event type, because here I created a public channel. So my channel is public, it's not private. I'm just going to select new channel message. And now I have my Slack connection already set up, and I can simply go and find that channel. So here it is, Make AI Agent Demo. So let's do Make AI Agent Demo, and then hit save, and hit save again. And what we can do now, first things first, very important, let's test if this is working. So I do not recommend, please don't activate your scenario yet, because when we're building the agent, we could create some like infinite loops and it runs through all of your make operations. So keep this off. But what I can simply do is hit run once. And if I go over to Slack, I'm just going to send another test message like I did before. This is a test. And let's see. And here we go. So that message, I'll zoom in a little bit there. That one has made its way to Slack. And take a note, we'll cover some of these topics a little bit later on, but we see, for instance, which user sent the message. We have the timestamp. This is the unique ID of the Slack messages. And of course, we have the text. So I'll give everyone a minute, let's say, to make sure that that webhook is set up, and then we can move on. While I wait, Justine, are there any more questions in the chat?
We have a question again about the security of the data and how we can prevent the data from being absorbed by the LLM.
So this one, it's a topic that obviously always comes up. I think whenever you're building these agents, these solutions, if, for instance, your company policy is that by no means any customer data should be put into an AI agent or given to an LLM, then you need to make sure that that's the case when you basically set up this workflow, right? That, for instance, here, what you could do is have a large language model that creates blog articles for you. That's very low risk, is you just give it an idea and it will go and create a blog article. That's very different to if you have an AI agent that takes a lead that just signs up. You have to give it the person's name, email address, and where they work, so it can do some lead research. That's something that is a company by company basis. So all I know is the companies we work with, there's different levels of due diligence that they go to. And a lot of people, for instance, they've gone and done the work with either Gemini or with Mistral. For instance, I think that's a big play of Google, is everyone's familiar with the Google Suite. There's a lot of companies that are leveraging the Google Suite, and maybe companies are more happy to use Gemini, since anyway their data is already in the Google Suite. But it's really something like a company by company basis.
And Louisa would like to see the hook part again, the step prior to this screen.
Yep, perfect. So I can do it again. So in here, we are adding a new webhook. The event type is going to be new channel message. And then afterwards, once you need to connect your Slack account. So you can basically just hit add, and then it will open up Slack. You need to give it authentication. Now, as I shared before in the Loom, is if your company does not allow you to interact third-party apps with Slack, this will not work. So in the Loom, I suggested maybe using a free Slack account while you build this out and test. But you need to have your Slack connected, and then you can simply just select the channel. So mine was Jan Make, what was it? Demo Make Agent, I think. I need to go and find the name again. Make AI Agent Demo. Make AI Agent Demo, and you can just pick the channel from the list. All right, cool. So with that one, let's move on. And now we can basically drop in our Make Agent. Let me just zoom out so we can all see. So I'm just going to add another module. And here it should be, maybe it's like near the top for you, but otherwise, if you just search Make AI Agents, we can select it from the list. And then we simply just want to run an agent. So what we've done before is previously, let me just have this one open in another tab. If I go to my agents, I created this, where are we? Jan Demo Slack Assistant. This was the agent that I created. And what we can do now is inside a make scenario, trigger that agent. So once you've created an agent, it should appear here in your drop down of all your different agents. So I can select this Jan Demo Slack Assistant. And what you'll see is there's no tools connected. We can here set tools, but we'll do that later. What we can also do in Make is set additional system instructions. So on top of the instructions that we set at an agent level, you can also do that in a scenario level. So for instance, this one could be something like just answer, it's not something that's needed. Answer any Slack messages that come in. The one good thing that I would potentially recommend always putting here in the additional system instructions is, and I'll put this here for context, the current date and time is, And here in Make, what we have access to is we have different functions. And I'm just going to go and grab this now function. Basically takes whenever this runs, it's going to put in here the current date and time. What this one is very useful at doing is if your agent needs to understand what time it currently is, for instance, saying, can you schedule a meeting for me next week? Or what are my meetings today? Unless you have this, because the way that large language models work is they have like a date cutoff. So when you ask ChatGPT, maybe if you're using it via the app, it might give you a better response. But sometimes if you ask what date is it, it might say it is November 2023, because that is the cutoff date of the knowledge that the agent was trained on. But if you give it these specific instructions, say for context, this is the current date, and this is obviously not something that you could do at the agent level because we don't have access to those functions, but this is a good one of adding into the system instructions. And then for the messages, so now this is like what instructions is the agent receiving. I'm simply going to map the text. So whatever message I send on Slack, I'm going to map in here. And then that is it. And I want to hit save. Just let me double check. I know one more thing that I need to do, and then I want to drop in here a thread ID. And this thread ID, at the moment, I'm just going to put in here the timestamp. So this is the timestamp of the message in Slack, and you'll see why this is important in a second. So the three things you just need to set up here is obviously configuring your agent, setting this Slack timestamp as the thread ID. You can add some additional instructions. I definitely recommend adding this one, and then simply mapping the text that you get from Slack into this message step. I'm going to hit save, and I'll give you all a minute or so to finish that one. And then again, if you can give me the thumbs up when that one's working.
We have another question from Louisa, who's asking if it only works with channels and not with private DMs.
So for me, in my opinion, channels is better. So that's why I recommend just creating a channel for yourself. So just create a channel that you're the only person in there. I think it can work in other settings. I haven't tested it, to be honest. So here, for instance, you could do it. I think this might be this IM message could be a DM with yourself. You need to check whether that works. But for me, I typically use new channel message or new private channel message. Awesome.
And can we send an Excel file to the agent to extract data from it?
Yes, absolutely. And the way you would do that, we'll see it a little bit later on. This then brings in tools, tool calling, because what you can have is your agent, you'll give it access to be able to, for instance, download an Excel file or download a Google Sheet. It's much better if you're working in the Google suite, I have to admit. Like, it's way better to, for instance, convert an Excel using Make have a Google Drive action, where you can, for instance, take an Excel file and convert it to a Google Sheet. You could basically convert it to a CSV, but that would all need to be done in the tooling. It is a little bit technical. You do need to configure everything that your agent needs to have the possibility at doing. So let me just move on to the next step. So actually, before I do, and this is something that maybe I'll just test for myself first, and I'm going to again hit run once. So now it's waiting for me to send a new Slack message. And I just want to test that our agent is set up correctly. So let me say something like, when is Albert Einstein's birthday? This might be a great question that you might ask ChatGPT when you're studying for a pub quiz. So here we have our Slack ran, our agent ran. And what I can do is look at the response. And this is as if you're asking ChatGPT. Hi there, Albert Einstein was born on March 14th, 1879. You can see that it actually wrapped this in underscores. This would be an italic on Slack. And then it just says, let me know if you need more information. And what you see here in our agent as well is this thread ID. And this is what I basically connected to the Slack timestamp. So every Slack message that you receive has a specific timestamp. And you'll see why this is important a little bit later on, but this is like a unique ID that we can give to our agent. Because what we in the end want to have is like a conversation about a specific topic with our agent. So what I'm simply going to do now is add a new module, and this is going to be, again, Slack. And now instead of watching for events, I'm going to use create a message. And again, so I have a Slack bot here, which I would always recommend if you do have a Slack bot connection. But for this purpose, probably what most of you are using. I'm just going to use my user connection, so it's the same. And then in terms of the channel ID, I'm just going to say enter manually. And what I'm actually going to do is just grab the channel ID, which we should have here. See, we can have a channel from the first Slack message. And I'm just going to map that to the channel. And the text that I want to send is the agent's response. So here now, like the way this works for any new Make users is you have whatever information we're getting from the first Slack step here, and then whatever information we're getting from our agent step. So I'm just going to map the response. And then this is very, very important. I want to toggle this show advanced settings. And then I'm going to put in here, we see here thread message ID. And the way this works, that if I pass the timestamp of this message, when I send this message back, what it's going to do is instead of just like sending another message down here on Slack, it's actually going to use the reply in thread feature. And it's going to be very, very useful for having us be able to coordinate with this agent for different tasks. So here in this step, the thread message ID is simply going to be the timestamp of this message. So here we see timestamp. And actually, now that I see in this mapping, we also see thread timestamp that we didn't see before, and we're going to make that update a little bit later on. So let me hit save. And now I want to run this one more time. What I would recommend, please don't turn this on yet, because you may end up creating an infinite loop and use all of your Make scenarios. So this is a little bit dangerous. So let me just run this once. And now I need to send another message. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that same text that I did before and drop in here, when is Albert Einstein's birthday? And let's see what happens this time. And you saw just like that, very quickly, I've got a response from myself because I'm using obviously my Slack connection. And this is actually our agent kicking in saying, hi there, Albert Einstein's birthday is on March 14th, 1879. He is well known for his contributions to physics, particularly his theory of relativity. So Nuno, this is a great question. Why would it loop? Because right now what happens is our agent sent a message into our Slack message, right? I sent a message, our agent replied. The way that this Make scenario works is whenever any Slack message gets sent in this channel, the scenario is going to run, which means when the agent replies. So what I can see now, if I save this one, and let me actually just give this a name, call it Make Demo Agent. What I can do is I can choose to run this module only, because what's actually happened, if I go back here, you'll see there are some messages in the queue. There's one record in the queue waiting to be processed. And that was the agent's reply. The agent sent a message in the channel, and now Make's saying, hey, like there was a new message, I want to run this scenario again. So let me do that. I'm just going to, instead of running the whole scenario, because as I said, that would create this loop, I'm just going to run this module only. And here I can use existing data. So that was basically the agent's reply. And here we can see that this is exactly that message that the agent sent back. Hey there, Albert Einstein's birthday is on March 14th. He's a well-known, blah, blah, blah. This was the exact message that we got here on Slack. Now, what's great about this is we also see here bot ID. And because I'm sending this message programmatically, we basically know that, hey, this message was sent by a bot. So what I can do straight away in Make, between any modules, I can basically add a filter. So here I'm going to say wherever the bot ID does not exist, because when a user sends a message, there is no bot ID. And what this is going to ensure is whenever I'm the one in Slack sending a message to my agent, I want this scenario to run. However, when the agent replies in this step here, I do not want it to call itself again and basically create this endless loop. I know I went through that a little bit fast, but are there any questions on that, or is that clear for everyone? Yeah, I think I saw a couple of questions around like Make versus custom GPTs. I think I can touch on that at the end.
What was the filter, Jan? Did you say bot ID equal to nothing, or?
Does not exist.
It does not exist. Okay, thanks.
Exactly, because just to show that, if I run this module again, so run this module only, now it's waiting for a message. When I now, as the user, send a message, so here I'll basically say test, and we can see like there is no bot ID listed whatsoever, because this was a message coming from the user. And then obviously when our agent replies, we have this bot ID. What I'll actually do is I'm going to open up the answer just so that we see it as well from our agent. So that was this one here. So now I'm looking again at the answer, the webhook that basically ran when our agent replied. And what we also see is we see two things now. We of course have the timestamp of the original message, but we also have the timestamp of the thread. And this one is very important because this is the one that we basically passed at the beginning to our agent. And this is going to basically allow our agent to remember what is the current context. Because to give you an example of that, so now that I've got this filter in place, what I can simply do, and I'll basically turn this one on, please, this is a warning, I'm not responsible, I'm not liable for your make operations or your OpenAI credits. Only turn this scenario on once you've got this filter in place. That is very, very important. So now if I turn this one on, and let me go back to Slack, and if I say here, again, when is Albert Einstein's birthday? It will instantly pretty much give me a response. You can see just how quick it is. Hi there, Albert Einstein was born on, and see how like each time it's formatted slightly differently. But that's because obviously how agents work, LLMs, they're not like deterministic. It is a little bit random, but it's always giving me the right information, but just formatted differently. If I say now, how old would he be today? Let's have a look. You can see, hi there, to help you accurately, I need to know whose age you're referring to or the specific date of birth you have in mind. Because here, the agent has no idea of who I'm referring to because it doesn't have context of the previous conversation. And the way we basically are able to get around that in Make is using this thread ID. So we have the timestamp of the message. We know that whenever a new message comes in, it's going to have this timestamp. What we also want to add is also the thread timestamp. So the way I can do this, I can use a little function in Make, and I'm going to share this with everyone, is an if empty formula. And what this one will do is you can basically pass in two values. And if the first value is empty, it's going to take the second one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if empty, the thread timestamp first. And if the thread timestamp is empty, then take the timestamp. And let me just copy this, and I'm going to paste it here in the Zoom chat for everyone to see. You can, it's basically in these little formats, but you can simply copy that and paste it in. It should work. So if the thread timestamp is empty, then use the timestamp. Now that I've put this, let's try that exact same test again. So let me just do here.
Jan, we have a few questions.
Yes.
First one being, would that use make credits to receive this message, even though it is then filtered out?
Yes, it's one operation.
Mm-hmm. And Claudio was asking if it's possible to trigger the flow by tagging a contact or a dedicated bot.
So not triggering the flow. The trigger flow happens. Like this is the best we sort of get in Make. It would be great like here if, for instance, they could have let you like not just new message in a channel, but like new message with these conditions that you'd basically need to use the filters for. So you could say where the message contains this specific tag or this, like let's say topic, but you will need to use a filter, and every other message will just like, it will consume one operation for triggering the scenario. The filter doesn't cost you an extra operation. So it will just be like for every message that you send that doesn't trigger the bot, you are using an operation.
And how would you integrate Make MCP into workflows like this?
So that one I probably could answer for you this time next week. My co-founder Piv has already looked a little bit into Make MCP, but I haven't had a chance yet, unfortunately. All right, so what I want to do, I'll test that one again. So just to reiterate for everyone, what I've done here is I've basically said for the thread ID that we give the agent, and how it works in Make is whenever you ask a question with the same thread ID, that's this short-term memory. Make will basically remember the conversation that you had in that thread and allows you to have this back and forth conversation with the agent. So let's try that one more time. So here I'm going to ask, when is Albert Einstein's birthday? And because this is a new message, it's not going to have any context of what I've done before, but here it nailed it. It basically said Albert Einstein's birthday is on March 14th. Here it's actually decided to give me an additional fact saying the date is also celebrated as Pi Day due to mathematical constant 3.14. Pretty cool. So now if I ask how old would he be today? And sure thing, to calculate Albert Einstein's age today, April 29th, you see how useful it is, the fact that in those make agent settings, I passed the current date. He was born on March 14th. As of 14th of March 2025, he would have turned 146 years old. Therefore, he is currently 146 years old. Now I can have a completely separate chat about Isaac Newton or whatever. That's sort of this concept of the like short-term memory and using threads in Make so that you can create this little chatbot. Awesome. And raised a good point, which is why I want to move on to the next step. At the moment, you're 100% right. This is just let's say, all this is doing is giving you the power to leverage ChatGPT directly within Make. What I can maybe say here is if I look at the history, and this is something that's probably a little bit more difficult if you are building this with purely ChatGPT steps, is this idea of the thread. So what's great is when I basically asked here the second question, so here my input message was, how old would he be today? You can see that we get the response that ChatGPT, the AI agent provides, which is actually powered by ChatGPT. And then whenever you're debugging, what's very useful is checking out these execution steps. So here we can see everything that happened before. So first of all, the agent gets our long system prompt, the core instructions. Next, the agent, basically me, the human, said, when is Albert Einstein's birthday? Here, the agent simply replied. Then I asked my second question, how old would he be today? And obviously it has context of the conversation. So you have this thread, this short-term memory that your agent can tap into. Now, what I want to showcase as another quick demo is, let me see if I can now, for instance, have this AI agent work on a LinkedIn post. So can you help me write a LinkedIn post? It will probably, this is exactly the same as if I would give this prompt to GPT-4o Mini. Sure thing, could you provide me a bit more context about the content you'd like to include in your LinkedIn post? For example, sharing a professional. So what I have in mind is, let me actually just create a LinkedIn post as if I was advertising the event that we're currently in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply copy the title of the event. And can you create a post advertising the following event? And that's the title. And here's the description. And let me just grab that from Luma. So here's the description. And let me send this off. And so because our AI agent, the way it's configured, it's just like whatever the user asks, just try and solve it to the best of your knowledge. So this is purely going to be using its knowledge. It's the large language model, the ChatGPT-4o Mini. And basically this is what it came up with. Join us for an exclusive interactive workshop, Build and Make AI Agent Live. And we have a, let's say, semi-decent LinkedIn post. But at the moment, this is probably not something that I would post myself. So how would we think about here in this AI agent, actually giving it better abilities to structure a LinkedIn post better? Does anyone have any ideas? Where would you go now? Would you basically, we have two options. So either we can create a tool that is going to be specialized at creating LinkedIn posts, or we could just go and update its system prompt to say, this is how I like to structure my LinkedIn posts. Absolutely. Yep. Chris already nailed it. So we want to use a tool. The reason why we want to use a tool, and this is again another best, like let's say best practice of agent building, is really in these core instructions. Let me go and find that agent's core instructions here. So this agent's core instructions should really just instruct the agent how it should make decisions. It really shouldn't like leverage any output. So what I have already done, and I think because we're a little bit short on time and I do want to get to answering all your questions. Or maybe even I'll throw this open to the chat. For creating the tool, do you want me to do this from scratch, that you see how to create the tool step by step, or should I go from already existing scenario? Show the existing. Okay, perfect. Good. So in the scenarios, and this one, if you head over to the Notion documentation that you have, you'll see here in this little LinkedIn post writer tool, there is this JSON that you can download, and that is the blueprint. So what I have set up, and let me go to my scenarios and agent tools, and I've got, I need to search for it here, LinkedIn post writer. So again, this is just an AI step, and it's basically returning an output. Now I'll go through quickly the different, let's say, setups whenever you want to give your agent a tool. So what I have here is I have scenario inputs. At the bottom, I'll zoom in a little bit here. You'll see this little icon, which is scenario inputs. And whenever you have a tool that you want to give your agent access to, the agent needs to be able to communicate with that tool. And the way it does that is with these inputs. So I've got one input called LinkedIn post brief. What I want this little tool to do is the agent is going to give it a brief of a post that it should create. And then basically I'm using Claude. This could be ChatGPT, this could be Gemini, this could be Mistral. And what I've done here is I've just basically said, hey, this user has sent a message, and I've basically marked. So whenever you create these scenario inputs, they appear here. So scenario inputs, LinkedIn post brief, I can basically map this. So whatever the agent tells this tool, that's going to be mapped into this Claude scenario. I'm using Claude because I really like the way 3.5 Sonnet writes. As I said, you can use whatever model you like. And then basically I have this system prompt, and very similar to like writing an agent prompt, is just saying, this is how our LinkedIn posts should be formatted. I want to have a hook, which is a one line, max 57 characters. Then I want a blank line. Then I want to have a rehook. And I've basically given it some instructions to how it should write this LinkedIn post. And then finally in the scenario output, so whenever we have an input, we also need an output, and that is the LinkedIn post suggestion. And to basically share that output with our agent, you need to add this scenarios module. So when you search in the tools here, you can search for scenarios, and there is return and output. And here I'm basically just giving the response from Claude. So now that I have, this is my tool scenario. Now that I have that one set up, what I can do is I can go back to my first agent that I have set up here. So let me go to my AI agents, and let me go to the demo Slack assistant, and I can add these system tools. So I can search for LinkedIn post writer. And whenever you add a tool, one thing that's very important, so let me just add this one so that you can see. If you're adding a tool for the first time, what you'll need to do is add a description. And the description basically tells the agent how it can use the tool. So use this tool when you need to generate draft LinkedIn posts. But since I've now basically added this tool to my agent, what is one thing that I would need to do before I can just go and like test this again? What do you think is something that I should do to update this agent to like best use the tool? Update the prompt. Absolutely. Yep, Thomas, you nailed it. So we have this system prompt. At the moment, this is just telling like you're a Slack assistant, you don't have any tools at the moment, and we need to basically update this. And one thing that I said before is whenever you're working on these system prompts, don't write them yourself. Use AI here. Like AI is great at that. So what I'll simply do is I'm going to go over to the ChatGPT conversation that I had where I was actually working with this prompt. What you can do, since you don't have this conversation already, you can basically paste in the existing prompt and say, hey, here's a prompt that's already working well for an AI agent. Now I want to update it with the following. So what I'll do, and rather than typing this out, I'm just going to speak to it using Whisper. So I now want to add a new tool to my agent prompt, which is the LinkedIn post writer. The agent should basically use this tool whenever it thinks it needs to come up with a LinkedIn post. And the tool as an input basically takes a LinkedIn post brief. So a briefing to what type of post should be created. And then the tool will return the properly structured LinkedIn post. which you should then still format as a Slack message. Okay, so that is my update to the existing prompt. So let me send this one off. And as I said, that's going to be like way faster than me like going in and updating the context, updating the instructions. It's just going to have all the context that it needs. So now, for instance, we have answer any questions sent via Slack to the best of your knowledge and generate LinkedIn posts when requested using the LinkedIn post writer. So that one, it probably needs to be, it didn't quite nail my pronunciation. So the tool is called, this time I maybe will write it, LinkedIn post writer, not writer. And Nuno, I used Whisper. Whisper is the tool for dictation. All right, so now I've got my updated prompt. You can see it even updated some examples. So let me copy that one in. And here I'll go back to my make agent. And I'm just going to highlight everything and paste this in. We have some updated information now, so I can hit save. And now I can go and test it again. So what's great here, because I'm updating these agent configurations at the global level, in this agent level, I don't need to touch anything at all in my scenario. Of course, I could have the option inside. Let me just open up the make scenario again, where I'm triggering the agent. I could add additional tools there if you were, for instance, calling this agent from multiple scenarios. But in this case, where's my demo agent? Or did I forget to name it? I think this is the one. Yeah, that's looking good. Awesome. And now you'll see there that this LinkedIn post writer tool has appeared. You can also set tools at the scenario level. So with that done, let me just go and test this out again. And because remember here, like whenever I start a new message, this is like a blank slate. Whenever the agent is replying to this, it has no memory of what it discussed before in this message. So we can really see, like, are we getting a better result now? And it's not biased by what happened before. So what I can simply do is I'm going to copy that same message that I sent. And so it's taking a little bit longer. Let's actually go and check out what's going on in Make while this runs.
Jan, can you show again the filter to prevent loops?
Yes, yeah, let me do that. What I'll do here is, before I do that, let me first show the run, and maybe we can have a quick look at Slack. So here we can see it's actually pretty good. Now, if I compare the first post, which was like a lot of emojis, join us for an exclusive interactive workshop, that's not really how I would post. Also, the formatting is a bit off. Now that I'm doing the same thing with a tool, it looks a lot better. So we've got want to build AI agents that actually work, free workshop. Everything changes when you see it live. Join me for a hands-on session where I'll show you exactly how to build AI agents in Make step by step. And it's formatted exactly how I want it on LinkedIn, even with some like repost. If you know someone who needs better automation, what's the one automation task you'd love to hand over to AI? Drop it below. So you can see by incorporating a tool, the performance has improved a lot. Now over to that first question on the filter. So I need to go to the diagram for that. So it's simply where the bot ID does not exist. That's the filter. All right, and now what I want to show you is in that run that just happened, where we've got the 3 operations, the execution steps are a little bit different, and this is very good for debugging. And now you see that there's a lot longer. We have 7 execution steps. Obviously, to begin with, we have that very long system prompt that gets sent. Then we have the human message, can you write me a LinkedIn post? Because we're using the thread, obviously it replies saying sure thing. Now, because we're using the thread, I can, in the same context, say, can you create a post with the following information? Now, before it just goes and replies with the LinkedIn post, what happens next is the AI kicks in and the AI decides I want to use a tool. called the LinkedIn Post Writer tool. And here we can see the briefing that the agent gave it. And the agent actually just gave it the whole description that I had. So maybe I need to like update its agent settings so that it could probably put it as more of a briefing, like please create a LinkedIn post with the following information. Maybe it could shorten it. But this was the brief that our agent decided. So our agent picked that this was the right tool and decided to use it. And then we obviously get the tool's response, which is it's in JSON, but this is something that easily that an AI can understand. And finally, the agent then obviously takes that response and formats it properly for Slack with the bold where it needs to be. Now, this is the fact that we've got this tool. The next time, if I ask what is Albert Einstein's birthday, it's just going to answer the question because it knows that's not a LinkedIn post. And that's the tool that it's basically, or it's not going to actually generate a tool or like use a tool because it doesn't need to. Awesome. So let me just show you, I want to do one more tool just to show you like give you maybe a little bit more inspiration that you can add. And then I'll leave the last 10 minutes for questions. So one other tool that I've had, I think this one could be useful, is I basically have this little scenario, which is a tool here where we are getting all of my calendar invites. Again, this is one that if you have a look in the Notion document, we have a retrieve calendar invites tool, and this is a little JSON. And so what I can simply do is, as scenario inputs, I have the start and end date. So what I need to do is whenever I want to retrieve my Google Calendar meetings, I just need to give, or the agent just needs to give this tool what's the start of the date range, what's the end of the date range. It will then basically aggregate all my meetings and return that to the agent so the agent knows what meetings I have. So two things I need to do. First of all, I need to go to my AI agent and add the tool in. So this is my demo Slack agent. I'm now going to add a second tool called retrieve Google Calendar events. There was an ask before about like getting data from Excel, and I would do it the same way. As you would basically create a tool that allows you to take an Excel file, get the information, and basically send that back to the agent to do whatever you want with it. So now that I've updated my added the tool to my agent, I need to obviously update the prompt. So let me head back to ChatGPT. I now have another tool ready to give to my agent, which is the retrieve calendar events tool. This tool allows the agent to extract or retrieve meetings that I have in my Google Calendar, the inputs that the agent needs to give, and the agent should ask that the user provide is a start and end of a date range. So I can basically say, show me all meetings for tomorrow, and the start should be the beginning of tomorrow, and the end should be the end of tomorrow. So that is just a very quickly spoken instructions. And I'm just going to send this off and see if that's enough. When we're working on these agents, it's really an iterative process. So now you can see just how quickly it's updating the prompt. And let's see, we now have two tools here. We have the retrieve calendar events and the LinkedIn post with some descriptions on how it should use both of them. So let me just copy this whole prompt and I can update it here. Hit save. And I think one thing that probably might come up is maybe with regards to like time zones, but let me test it first and we'll see if we can apply it afterwards. One thing I've just seen, I think I'm on duplicate pages. So I want to make sure I'm on the one where I added the retrieve calendar events tool. Let me hit save. As I said, I've added this. Now our agent is updated. I don't need to change anything in the scenario. So let me simply go to Slack and say, what meetings do I have on tomorrow? And we can see the agent replied. And here are my meetings for tomorrow. So just like that, it basically got what I need to do. If I have a look now at that agent that ran, so I can, what's cool here is in these, whenever you're using the tools, you can debug at the agent scenario level, but also at the tool level. So if I have a look at this tool, that's something that we didn't do for the LinkedIn writer, for instance, I can see that this scenario ran and it dynamically, let's have a look. It put as the end date the 1st of May at 1:59 a.m. and the start date is the 30th of April. So again, this is here probably because of like, you can see this is, if I'm looking at GMT time zone, this is actually accurate. That's something I'll probably need to tweak in my agent instructions to say, always treat dates as Europe Berlin time. But it managed to, from me saying, what are the things tomorrow? It managed to pick a start and end date. It basically retrieved my calendar events, aggregated them, and send it back to my agent for my agent to answer. Now I could take this, I'd need to give it another tool to schedule a meeting. You can give it tools to send emails, create emails. What I really wanted to show you there of just like, now is like the world's your oyster. You need to get creative with this, and pretty much any scenarios you can build in Make, you could give that power to an AI agent and let it decide when to use what tool. All right. So with that, maybe like specifically first, are there any questions on the build? Maybe Justine, if there were any questions on the build or specifically around this, and then we can go to some questions around Make agents in general.
So Thomas had a problem and had a weird answer saying that it seems like you've sent a timestamp on a numeric value. Could you please clarify what you're looking for regarding this?
So it was, sorry, can you say again? Let me try and find it in the chat. You've sent a timestamp in a...
Or a numeric value. Could you please clarify what you're looking for regarding this? So I imagine your input is not the right one, Thomas.
And Thomas,
maybe I can jump in.
Yeah, jump in.
The answer. I asked the agent. I asked through Slack, how old would be Einstein today, and that's the answer I got. So it didn't answer my question. I got this answer.
Okay.
The answer doesn't work.
Gotcha. Did you use in your message here? Let me go to the Make scenario. What I think might have happened. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe not. In this step here, let me need to go to the diagram mode and here. Did you use now or timestamp?
I used now right there.
Okay.
I have the if empty message in there. Yeah. Function.
Yeah. And but the if empty, that's like, so this looks the same, if empty thread timestamp, yes. Then timestamp.
Yes.
And this one is now. Okay, what I would otherwise try and do, like for me, it always works.
Oh wait, I got the error. I have the if empty. Oh yeah. Never mind. The if empty message, the if empty function, I put it under message instead of under thread ID.
Gotcha.
That's a problem. Thank you.
No.
We had a question as well from Nuno.
Or Nuno, if you're there, feel free to unmute and say hello.
Perfect. Hello. Thanks of all. First of all, amazing. I love you guys. Thanks for this. The question is, in this specific case, if we only have one action, for example, for the LinkedIn post, does it make sense to have an AI agent? Or is it simple to have, for example, a GPT assistant? Because it's the way I've been building, and I'm just trying to understand if there's, for example, the memory part, if this plays around. What is your take on this? Thank you.
Yeah. So purely, like, let's say just for that, I would like the GPT assistant is going to give you the same results. Like if you purely like have, like, let's say you have one Slack channel where all you need to do is you say, hey, this is my like idea for a post. It basically gives back. What I wanted to show, obviously, like we can't in these 90 minutes add hundreds of different tools. This is the way of almost like in Slack, creating your own little personal assistant where in like one place, I can get it to check my meetings, send emails, schedule meetings, write LinkedIn posts, write newsletters. So that's really the real benefit of an agent in the fact that here in like one channel, I could say, oh, could you like, let's say I use this a lot for noting down ideas. Sometimes I need to save something as a task that I need to do. And we also have another database that we log our content ideas. So here, what's great is I could just give it a quick voice note and say, hey, this is the idea I have about the post. And then the agent will know like, I need to use my tool, which is like save content idea, and not the tool, which is create a new task. And so that's really like, you should only use an agent when you need it to decide what task to do. That's really the definition of the agent, this autonomy of, in the agent instructions, you give it clear instructions of how it can make decisions about what task to run, and then the tools are those different tasks. If your use case doesn't need this decision making, then just create the tool itself, which is what the assistance API is with ChatGPT.
Perfect. Thanks.
All right, Justine, any more questions?
Maybe Jay, do you want to ask your question about the scaling?
I'm reading it.
Hey, Jan, this has been incredible. Thank you.
Awesome.
So
Happy to
my
hear.
question is, like, where this lands commercially. This is pretty slick and seems efficient, but I guess what's going through my mind is how are users able to maintain this? What are their costs? If I'm an integrator, how am I going to scale this and troubleshoot? So I'm not looking to put you on your back foot here.
No,
I'm
absolutely.
trying to think about like what's next.
Yeah.
Not only for myself, but for the audience.
Gotcha.
Because again, it's elegant, but there's a lot of intricacies.
Absolutely.
So thank you for taking the question.
Yeah.
Really.
No, absolutely. Like, I think I'd probably like approach this one from a couple of different angles. First of all, like us as 9X, like our what we really are striving for is showing business people how they can leverage this technology. So what I have to make absolutely clear is like, is this solution as robust as if you get your engineers to build an agent on Amazon Bedrock and like do it all, have it all hard coded? Of course, absolutely not. But what is great is this gives the power in the hands of the business person, because I think they're almost the best ones, especially on doing this iteration and prompting. Because as you see, like once you set up the core fundamentals, now whenever I want to add a new tool, majority of the work is done in the prompting. It's just like telling this agent what to use, which tools, when, and prompting is not an engineering topic anymore. As we said, like as I'm showing here, you can have AI write the prompts for you. So I think it's very, very good for prototyping. What we're also seeing with some large companies do, the way they treat it is they actually have their business teams come up with POCs, proof of concepts. And then if it's something that needs to be rolled out towards the whole organization, you could have a team take this over and hard code it. What I would say of like all the different agent providers now, Make is obviously probably the most advanced when it comes to like enterprise level features and like permission sets and security, which I think it's quite an interesting play for them to get in this area. Because for instance, on the enterprise levels of Make, like right now in this scenario here, what I've done is I've connected my Google Calendar, my specific Google Calendar, right? And it's my specific Slack connection. That's obviously quite a high risk. If you have this agent, then access to the whole company, not everyone should have access to my Google Calendar or see what meetings I have or see what I'm sending on Slack. And like some of the enterprise features of Make is that you can have dynamic connections. So depending on which user is like importing the scenario, that only one person needs to build it, but then it can be used by many people safely. So that's the way I've sort of rambled a little bit there and jumped from topic to topic, but that's sort of the way I would see this. Hopefully that answered the question, but definitely if you have any follow-ups, let me know.
Thanks for that. And I do have some follow-up questions.
Yeah, go for it. Like, and in terms of like scalability, is that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't want to take away from other people's time for questions. So, yeah, I'll follow up. Thanks.
Awesome.
Hey, Jan, the demo was awesome. I just wanted to know how you send an Excel file to the AI agent. You need to use a tool. You need to use.
So there's different ways. I think I actually did this in another automation, but instead of, so this agent right now, let me go here. This agent is triggered by Slack, right? There's many different ways. Like it gets quite technical. If you were to, for instance, send the file via Slack, what you can also have, because this agent can be dropped into any Make scenario, you could have, for instance, a Make scenario that is, let me wait till this loads. No, it doesn't want to. Perfect. Good. Can you guys still hear me, or did the internet just drop?
No, we hear you.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Good. Then let me just create a new scenario. Let's see. I think this might take a little bit of time, so I might even just like open up another workflow if it is going to load. If it's not, I can already start like explaining this one. What you can basically do is you trigger a scenario, not when you get a Slack message, but for instance, when a new file gets uploaded to Google Drive. So you can have Google Drive as a trigger, and there's an action called watch new files in a folder. So maybe you have a file called new Excel files to analyze. And then whenever a new file gets added to that folder, the scenario is going to run, and you need to do some additional steps. So what you can use, there's Google Drive actions that says like download a file. And when you download it, what you can do is convert it to a CSV. You could convert it to a Google Sheet. Typically, I would say like CSV is a good file format. But in the end, right now with Make AI Agents, you can't basically upload a file. You can do that with some of the AI models, for instance, like Claude and Gemini. But with the AI agents, you can only put in text. So the way I would approach it is first you use just the typical make actions to download the file from Google Drive, convert it to a CSV, then you can get that whole CSV's text, and that's what you basically dynamically map to your agent. So I'm sorry, it's not going to let me.
Yeah, don't worry, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here it is. So this one's loading now. Like this one was
just not sending the Excel You send it as a text. You don't send the binary data of the file.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Perfect. Nice. Thanks all for the praise. That's very nice. I'll see if we had some more questions in there. Yeah, maybe one thing to touch on for those of you wondering about pricing. So I know my internet's being a little bit shady here, but let's see if I can get one of my scenarios open that ran before. Let's have a look at this demo. Make demo agent. Here we go. And let's have a look at the history. So there's two things to consider here. First of all is the make pricing. And basically make, you can check out the different plans. You have to pay per operation. So when this agent runs, is using 3 operations. 1 to get the Slack message, 1 to run the agent, and then 1 to reply. Now, obviously, if this agent calls tools, that will also, any like operations that happen in the sub scenario, that will also cost you make operations. However, I think their plans are very, very generous for the impact that it has. Next up is this agent. You'll be able to see here in the token usage, which is very, very good about how transparent they make this, is you have the different token usage. So you have the prompt tokens. I haven't gotten into this one too much, but you can clearly see how much tokens are used in like creating the prompts and also coming up with the answer. You can add this in, and then you can easily go to your model, and their pricing now, it's getting so cheap that it's like they do pricing based on millions of tokens. So you can see that here. So you're consuming the API credits or the tokens of your large language model provider and also make operations. Yes, exactly, Amir. You build both on make operations, but make don't charge you for the LLM. Is like that's your API key directly with the LLM provider. Because here you set up your agent and you set up your API key, it's basically directly for this. Awesome. Any final questions? Anyone want to, any final questions or final thoughts? Otherwise, we're bang on time. I'm glad you all enjoyed that. Yeah, Jay, that's actually a good one. Like, I know there are a few out there comparing like the different platforms, Make, Zapier, N8N. I think N8N is vastly different as well, because you basically don't pay for individual steps in your workflow. You rather pay for total number of workflows executed. So it is all different. The good news is everything seems to be getting cheaper, which is great. Alrighty, then yeah, with that, hopefully that gave you some inspiration. Definitely feel free to follow up, reach out on LinkedIn if you have some ideas of agents that you want to build, and looking for some feedback. And otherwise, yeah, we'll see you in the next live session.
Thank you, Jan.
Perfect.